Hi, everybody. I'm going to make a bracelet and I'm going to make it with herringbone stitch, tubular herringbone, and I'm going to put little thingies on it as I go. Usually with herringbone, when people take herringbone tubes and make wonderful bracelets by stepping up in size and then stepping back down in size, this is different. As you can see by now, I haven't done it yet. When I finish this, I'm going to take a picture of that and use it as the cover picture for the video. Now, just to show you that I have to live up to the standards that I advise my students to live up to, I'm going to start this using the ostensibly more difficult start. And then when I get to the end of it and I join the ends again, you'll see how advantageous that can be. I'm using my little bank of needles. I've got my little cozy cab um, thread catcher. Basically because I don't smoke, I use this as a little miniature trash can. Got my embroidery needles, my much beleaguered and much used piece of beeswax. I'm using silamide, and it's an unpopular thread. It's just a few friends of mine, and I really like it. What I like about it is, to use the words of David Chat, it has a bounce to it, unlike the Fireline. I love Fireline for bugle beads, but since I'm not using bugle beads, I'll use silamide. Also comes in a ton of colors. This is one of them. Why did I not use green? Because this is going to be the main color. Well, because I don't have that color of green in ricosilamide, but also because to me, thread is a design element. And when I use thread, I have to keep that in mind because sure, I could use white, black, a neutral, a so-called neutral color. And I don't know, maybe that would work, maybe that would not. But sometimes I find that using contrasting colors that also go along with the beads that I'm going to use can be just fun. Again, you have choices and choices that can be made that are not uh, somewhat counterintuitive, perhaps, but fun in the long run. So again, just like the other video that you may have seen, if not, check it out. The alternative start to the uh, tubular herringbone is a circle. I'm using an even number of beads, and I'm starting off by, let's say, the first stitch, which is to insert beads in between beads. Unlike peyote stitch, you put beads in between beads, then you go through beads. With peyote stitch, you put a bead on, you skip a bead, and then you go through the following bead. This is not peyote stitch. It's different. I usually don't use such a long piece of thread, but because herringbone just eats up thread voraciously, I'm going to do that. So here I have two stitches on, I have the first stitch with two beads on. I'm coming out a bead. I'm going to skip over these two beads and pass through the needle through the next bead. And what will happen to those two beads? I'm going to pooch them in the opposite shape of the beads that I just put on. So the beads I just put on are going upward toward the direction of the work, the direction I'm working in, and the beads I just skipped over turn underneath, slide underneath. And this is why a lot of people don't like to start it this way because it's so wonky. It wants to move around on you. But, if you've done any beading, very much beading, you've noticed that the first row, and I don't care what stitch it is usually the most wiggly, confusing, wonky, wacky row. After that, it gets a little better. So here's the two up beads, the two that I squished down, and the two I just put on that are again up. After I put two more on, I'm skipping the next two and passing through the following single bead. And if I counted right, I don't know if I counted right. I'm usually not that bad at math, but I don't always like to count. I will if I have to. Then I'll end up with 4 stitches per row. And again, these are down beads. I'm going to insert 2 in between the two. Again, you either skip 2 or you skip 0. I'm skipping 0 here. The following thing that I will do is to skip 2. But again, I have to see how it wants to just go wherever. I have to stop it from making go wherever and make it go where I want it to go. So here's up, down, all around, up, down, up, down. And I'm just kind of holding it in such a way that it encourages it to behave. You don't have to freak out if it stops behaving. You just push the beads back where you want them to go. Now, here I go with the skip over part. And again, I kind of pooch them into shape. There's not too many other better words for that. I think pooching into shape is a very useful conceptualization. So yeah, we have up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and I've got a couple more stitches to go to finish the row. And with this, I will use the step up method instead of the twisty method. Why? Because these, you'll see on the bracelet, they need to be in the same line. They need to actually be on the outside. They don't want to be twisting. They keep occurring and they don't want to be twisting onto the inside of the bangle bracelet. They want to stay on the outside. You'll see that as I do it. So I won't waste your time trying to explain further. I have 2 more beads on. I am not skipping any beads, but instead going into the very next bead after the one I exited. And I'm pooching, making sure these are underneath, making sure these are on top. And yes, I did count correctly. And what I'm doing, because you know why I can tell I counted correctly, is because I have 2 beads to skip over. Now, when I skip these beads over, I don't want to forget that I'm doing the step up thing. So when I skip these, I'm not going to go up into this bead. I'm going to pass the needle through this bead down here. And I'm not a huge rule person, like you have to do it this way, but if I decide to do it a certain way, I do have to. Try to stay consistent. If I decide not to be consistent, that's a different type of work, a different type of piece. Now here's again, it's wonky. It wants to get funky and weird and confusing on us. Too bad. That's all right. I'm going to just refute the wonk, push it into the shape that I want it to be in. And a lot of that has to do with, oh, here we go, with tightness and tension, and also patience, because if it worst comes to worst, you're going to have another row and it'll start to stabilize. It is somewhat stabilizing here. So, and what do I want to do? Okay, I'm checking out where I started. I'm checking out where I'm going. And yes, I have 4 down and 4 up. These are going to flap out the ones that pooch down underneath. That's okay. when I come back to the end, when I get a long strip of this tube going and I'm ready to join them, they will crunch back in because my needle will basically tell them what to do. My needle will come through them, pass through them, and join them, and with adequate thread tension, they'll behave. I'm pooching that just because kind of like I can, but I will stop pooching and keep going. Now, what I want to do is do the embellishment. This is embellishing as you go. And what I do, I haven't seen a lot of other people do it, so I want to take you through this methodically. What I'm doing is I'm going to put one of these on, one of these on, and one of these on, and it's going to stick up. But first, I have to put on one, normally between these these stitches with these wacky poochy beads on them, I'm going to, or these sticky outie beads on them, I would normally put on two beads. When I do a sticky outie, I do one single bead of the core color. I do my poochy outies, and yes, technical term, poochy outie, and I make it tight. Then I have to go back through. I skip this one. If I don't skip this one, they're all going to fall off. I go through the poochy outies, but I do not go through that bead that I just added earlier. Why? Because I don't need to, because I don't want to, because that would not make the design coherent. That would not work, let's say. Now I have the start of the I have the sticky outies and the start of the stitch. The way I finish the stitch is by putting in the second of those two beads. And these I go down and up. You saw in the previous videos, or you've seen in other videos, how to do a herringbone tube. This is the normal thing. You go down one bead and up the next bead, pull it through, and lo and behold, watch me now. The stitch is complete, and I have the sticky outies on there. The rest of the row is normal, or as normal as it gets around here. What can I say? I'm not that normal. I'm not into normal, but sometimes I allow for normal because you can't have wonky weirdo 100% of the time. If it was wonky weirdo the 100% of the time, that would be the new normal, right? So again, these are really flapping out. Too bad. I find the one that I need to go through, and I bring it in good and tight, and it starts to cohere. I did this stitch, first stitch, second stitch, third stitch, and my fourth stitch, and my fourth stitch will be a normal stitch, but except I need to step up, and my step up spot stitch has to, here we go. Yeah, I have those on there. I have the two beads on there. I go down, and I don't go up here because that'll start twisting. I go into the bead right underneath it. And I come up, and I completely ignore the sticky outie beads for the next few rows. And in fact, the only thing I need to do with the sticky outie beads is make sure that they stay on the outie. If I put my two beads on, as usual, because I'm not going to do a sticky outie every stitch, otherwise they'd pile up too close to each other. I'm simply going to go back down and up like I normally would. And again, my only job is to ensure that the new beads for this stitch, the stitch right after the underneath the sticky outie beads, does not end up on the outside, because then the sticky outies are not, they're sticky innies. They're innies. They're not outies. I want them to be seen. I don't want them to be filling the tube. So I will do a couple more stitches, and I didn't design this. I designed this on the fly a few minutes before I started the video. I picked out my colors. I had this in mind. That was about it. I like this color a lot. I had these two in mind, and then I thought, oh, I got to do a really splashy resort-y color on top of that. So I did not decide ahead of time how many, and again, see how these kind of want to crowd in? I'll go like that. They're not crowding in anymore. Here's my next move. So what I'll do is I figure that I will do at least 3 stitches in between each sticky outie. I'm just gonna wing it and make it a long tube and then fit it around my bracelet, because it's just going to be a bracelet for me to wear. It's easy to, easy to gauge how long the piece should be. So my only consideration is, if I only had this many, I would have to space them out somewhat evenly along the thing. I might space them a little further apart. Because I have a lot of them, I can do as many as I want. It pays to have stash, believe me. And so I will go along my merry way until, and again, here's my step up spot. Watch me now, 2 beads, not one, going through. Then I can decide, okay, how many stitches of normal stitches I want in between the sticky outie stitches. Just so you know too, when you do this, your sticky outie bead is going to stay in the same, is going to be in the same stitch. So I started out with the first stitch being the sticky outie bead. That means that when I step up, my step up spot is always going to be right around that sticky outie bead into the sticky outie bead channel or part of the tube. So that makes it easy to remember. Sometimes you get a little head of steam going, and you're cooking along and you suddenly realize, oh my God, when did I do my last step up? If you're not sure where you did your last step up, then you probably skipped your step up. That is not a problem with these, because again, you have this visual marker. So help me decide, should I do this sooner or later? I think I will do at least one more stitch without a sticky outie before putting on a new sticky outie, because I don't want them too close together. And just a design consideration. I mean, I could make the sticky outies this far apart, this far apart, this far apart. The farther apart the sticky outies go, the more you have to be careful, because your repeats, if you want your sticky outies evenly spaced around the tube, around the bracelet, well, let's say you have 4 sticky outies on the whole bracelet, you do have to pay attention to how big the bracelet is. Otherwise, you're going to have one here. They're not going to, if you want 4 sticky outies, you want one at the noon position, one at the 3 p.m. position, one at the 6 p.m. position, one at the 9 p.m. position. So if you don't calculate ahead of time how big your tube or long your tube has to be, then you're going to end up with one at the noon position, one at the 3 position, one at the 6 position, and one at the 7 position. Because it, if that makes sense, because you only have 4 repeats. So the more repeats you have, the more forgiving it is. That's why I'm probably going to make these sooner than later. However, I don't want them to kind of overlap. And if I take one of these and size it up here, if I put one on now, it's going to be really, really close. I think I will do at least one more row before I put on a new sticky outie. And I just want to let you know too that I have a bead shop on Etsy. It's teresasullivanstudio.com, and I have these beads for sale, these beads for sale. I don't have these beads for sale, but just so you know, I got them from another wonderful Etsy seller called Bead Brats, all one word. And these are vintage little cup-shaped beads. And look at that tag. See how it says made in Czech-Slovakia? That means it was made after World War II, or excuse me, after World War I, but before World War II. Because as with a lot of countries all around the world, borders change, and it wasn't until after World War I that Czechoslovakia was joined uh, joined at the hip or whatever, and artificially as a result of some treaties or whatever. And before World War I, Czechoslovakia was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and it was the Czechs and the Slovaks were not the same country, were not the same people, or did not consider themselves the same people. Then they were glommed on together with the Slovaks, and obviously the rest is history. The funny thing is, now we're used to the spelling, or at least post World War II, we're used to the spelling without the hyphen, Czechoslovakia, all one word. That was because, again, I'm going to do one more round before I do my next sticky outie, by the way. That was basically it got conventionalized so that the hyphen was eliminated. But provenance, now if you find beads that say Czech-Slovakia, then you know that they were made after World War I, but before World War II. Similar to early post-war German beads, again, it's a bead-making region of renown, that whole area, that say made in Western Germany, not West Germany, Western Germany. So in any case, little things like that can be clues as to the origin and the time period that your beads came from. In a more modern context, Czechia is now known as Czechia. It's also known as Czech Republic. So if it says Czech Republic, that's going to be after 1990 or so. In the 90s, the Russians gave up direct control as part of the fall of the Berlin Wall fallout and the collapse of the Soviet Union. And once that happened, they started calling themselves Czech Republic. So just so you know. And again, I will show you the sticky outie part. You do a single bead instead of 2 beads. You do your sticky outie bead in whatever configuration you want. You don't have to replicate me. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Please don't make it exactly like mine. Please make it something that you would wear, that you would like, that in colors that you adore, and that express you. I mean, make a similar one if you want. That's great. But experiment with your own color sense. Have confidence in your own color sense. If somebody tells you they don't like the colors that you used, well, tell them they don't have to wear the damn bracelet, right? I've seen and heard of people being kind of put down for the color choices, and I have been cut, I've been cut down, put down for my color choices. And I learned early on to not care about what other people think about my color choices. So just so you know. And so, yes, I trust your color choices. I celebrate your color choices. And if anybody says anything bad about your color choices, tell them I said to knock it off. Tell them I told them to knock it off. Just so you know, this will uh, sit forward until the next row when you put beads under it, and then it'll stick out again. It'll be more sticky outy. This will sticky uppy. The other one is sticky outy. And if you really look closely, yes, you can see the blue, the light sky blue um, thread in there. Again, that's a design choice. I chose for it to be that way. I could have chosen a more neutral color, or probably somewhere in the world is a color and this wonderful puke green that I like so much of a bead thread. If so, let me know in the comments where to get it. I'll buy it. I'll find it. I'll buy it if I like the thread. But again, I decided, well, I'm using this sky blue here. I think I can get away with sky blue for thread. Why not? And the other thing I should mention is that, yes, I'm using doubled thread. And that's another thing people really, really don't like sometimes is doubled thread, because it's more of a hassle. I don't find it a hassle myself because I began beading with doubled thread right off the bat. So I kind of don't know any better, so to speak. But it's advantageous in the long run because it's literally twice as strong. I know I mentioned that in a previous video. I will keep mentioning it till the cows come home because it's worth, especially with bracelets that get a lot of wear and tear and a lot of, messing around, a lot of brushing against things and so on, a lot of stress on them. To have your It's worth having your pieces as strong as you can make them. So I will conclude this video. I'm not going to suggest that you sit here and watch me do inch after inch after inch after inch of this till I'm finished and ready to join. I will simply work on it. And again, see how I'm making sure that these new beads go on the inside. So it is a sticky outy bead, because yeah, if these are on the inside, excuse me, or if these are on the new seed beads are on the outside, look what happens. Oops, it's on the inside. Don't hide your sticky outies under a bushel or whatever. Don't hide your light under a bushel. Don't hide anything. Make sure that your sticky outies stay stuck out. Because why would you do them otherwise? Why would you have them on there if you couldn't see them? Maybe if they were glow beads or something, some kind of, rave beads that you could have rave beads on the inside, make a more lacy thing, and have it be kind of a surprise thing to see from the outside. So yeah, I will continue to work on this. I will show you what it looks like when it's closer to being done. This will have a whole bunch of these. I think the spacing is pretty okay. You can have random spacing if you want, but just so you know, I need to keep in mind that in between each sticky outy bead, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 stitches, and then this right here is part of the sticky outie. This is the bead that goes with the sticky outie. So in between the sticky outies, that's the sticky outie for this one. There are four whole rows in between each sticky outie. So I will attempt to adhere to that. I will continue working on this, and when I'm ready to join the ends, I will show you that in a new video. Now, I will also try to remember to show you the considerations that I make, because you can kind of, you have to kind of decide, am I going to make these exactly spaced? Am I going to have it a little too tight or is it going to make it a little too tight, a little too loose, that kind of thing? So those considerations will be covered. I believe there's a bracelet sizer for cuff bracelets, or bracelets that are supposed to go over your knuckles. I haven't used that, but I'm sure it's a wonderful tool. And again, I hope you enjoyed this. I will join you in the next one, and I appreciate your support. If you like this type of material, if you like the style of presentation or whatever, you think this is useful, you think it's goofy enough to be enjoyable, I encourage you to hit the like button, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments. Let me know what you need to know, what you already know and don't need to know more of, what things always just drive you nuts that nobody ever explains, especially when you're new, and so on. So thanks again. I'll see you in the next one, and take it easy and have a ton of fun beading. Bye.